So in our last lecture, we have understood about the pedigree analysis. Okay, what is the exact method of pedigree selection in the plant breeding programs? Now we have thoroughly discussed what is the actual procedure regarding this. Now we will understand what are the different merits and the demerits of this particular pedigree and selection technique. Okay, so actually in the UPSC mains, this question is already there, that what are the different merits and the demerits of the pedigree selection method in relation to plant breeding. Okay, so you must carefully know 2 to 3 merits and 2 to 3 demerits of the pedigree selection in the plant breeding program. All right, now consider this is your syllabus. We are dealing with the paper number 2 and the chapter number 3, that is plant breeding, biotechnology and the biostatistics, and we are here at the pedigree selection. Okay, now let's talk about the some of the merits and the demerits of the pedigree analysis. Right, now see, first of all, when we talk about the pedigree analysis, you know, the breeder should be very skillful regarding this particular technique, because when it comes to the pedigree analysis, the breeder should be the qualified one. Okay, that is, he should know what is the exact breeding methods are there, what are the different implications or the consequence of this method, how to deal with this method, how to perform this method. All these things are required in the breeder in order to perform this particular pedigree analysis. Now this breeder can use his skill to create a whole new plant which is much more improved than their previous counterparts or their previous plants, and hence here the breeder is getting to use his skill accurately, and that is why this becomes one of the merit regarding the pedigree analysis, that breeder tries to use his skill on the plants so that they can improvise these plant in order to achieve their goal from the agricultural point of view. Okay, so this is the first merit of the pedigree analysis, that the skills of the breeders get accurately used. Now in the second, we have merit in case of the pedigree analysis is the improvement in the crop. Okay, this is the of course one and the obvious one, because the whole program of the pedigree analysis revolves around the improvement of the variety. For example, we have take the one parent from the one source and other parent from the other source, and both of these parents contain some desirable character, and we will breed them, we will select them through the pedigree, and by going through the substantial sequence, finally we will create a one species which will be more beneficial from the human point of view. So here what we are doing basically, that we are improving the crop varieties. So pedigree analysis gives us the chance to improve our crops so that they can yield more productivity, or they can give us the more disease resistance varieties. So more disease resistance varieties, high yielding varieties, all can be achieved by using this pedigree selection method. Okay, then the third application or the third merit of this particular pedigree selection is that whatever the unwanted plant material is there, they will not be present at the end of the process. For example, the plants which are showing the unwanted genes in them, okay, whatever the genes which are unwanted, these genes were automatically get removed throughout the process of the pedigree selection. Because you know, in the pedigree selection, till the F13 generation, we are going to analyze the plant, and whatever the plants with the undesirable character, we are going to remove that plant. So here what we are doing, actually we are purifying the genes, and finally whatever the genes we have are the superior genes, and hence they are more and more useful from the human perspective. So here the unwanted plant or the unwanted genes will automatically get removed, so it can be considered as one of the merit of the pedigree analysis. Now here the fourth application is that the homozygosity. Okay, homozygosity is rapidly achieved here. Basically here in the pedigree selection, more stress is given on the self pollination, and through the self pollination, whatever the seeds are created, these seeds are constantly self pollinated till there is a final product created. So here what we are doing, we are achieving the homozygosity, so that whatever the genes which interest us, we should only remain at the end of the process, and whatever the genes which are not of our interest, they got removed through this process. So through the self pollination, we are rapidly acquiring this homozygosity. So this particular homozygosity is rapidly achieved through the process of the pedigree analysis. So this can be considered as a fourth merit of the pedigree analysis. Now here, whatever the time is taken through this process to create the new variety is quite less. Okay, why? Because when you consider the bulk method, okay, this bulk method we are going to understand it in a subsequent lectures. So when it compared with the bulk method, the relatively less time is required for this particular plant breeding program. So whatever the pedigree analysis is there, when it compared with that of the bulk method, comparatively it will have the less time. Actually pedigree method is also complicated in itself, but when it compared with the bulk method, then you will realize that pedigree method is comparatively having the less time. So all of these 5 merits are there for this particular technique. Now when we talk about their demerits, okay, there are certain demerits as well to this particular pedigree selection program. Now the very first demerit is that it is very time consuming. You know, we have talked about this through the process that till the F13 generation we have to move the crop plants. So generation by generation they were taking more and more time. As you know, when there is a seed will germinate to create the whole plant. Now this whole plant once created, it will create the next seed. So this whole timing considered as a one generation. Okay, so such a 13 generations we have to cover. So you can imagine what time is required for such a pedigree analysis. So this particular technique is quite time consuming, and hence it is a laborious technique. Okay, much more labor is also involved. Large amount of time and large amount of labor is involved, and once the labor is involved, it will automatically become expensive. Okay, so it's a expensive procedure as well. So it is a time consuming, it is requiring more labor, and if they are requiring more labor, more amount of money is going to spend on this particular process. Okay, so this as a major drawback of the pedigree selection program in the plant breeding. Okay, because till going to the 13th generation, it will take much of the time, much of the labor, and much of the money will also get involved in this process. Okay, now the second problem with the pedigree analysis is that it requires the extra attention. Okay, now you know, at every time we have talked about this, that throughout the generation, okay, first generation, second generation, third generation, till to the 13th generation, at every generation we have to closely monitor all of these plants. So this extra attention we have to give to the crop field for nearly every generation. We have to analyze the generation which is giving the thousands of the plant. You know, the second and third generation is producing more and more plants here. So we have to analyze all these plants, and then finally we, whatever the plants we are having, 100 to 200, all of these plants we also have to carefully examine. So basically extra attention is required for this particular process of a pedigree selection, because this pedigree selection goes right from the first generation to the 13th generation, and every time whatever the plants are involved, we are going to we should give them a maximum attention in order to remove the unwanted plant, and in order to select the whatever the wanted plants are there. Okay, so extra attention is required. This is the second major drawback regarding the pedigree selection program. Now this success of this particular pedigree analysis program will largely depend on the skill of the breeder. Okay, that is, the skilled breeder is required. We have discussed this here, that the skill is always required to do such a pedigree analysis, because it cannot be done by the ordinary man, it cannot be done by the farmers, it cannot be done by the semi-skilled man, but always the skilled breeder is required to perform this particular pedigree selection program. So having the skilled breeder every time this requirement is also complicated when it comes to the pedigree analysis. Hence it forms the demerit for that particular process. Now when we talk about the next demerit is that F2 and F3 generations. Okay, both of these generations, we have seen a procedure. In that procedure, we have talked about the F1 and F2 generation are giving thousands of the plants. Okay, and when we select out of these thousands of the plants, many unwanted plants are also got selected. Okay, so some of the time is also wasted in dealing with the unwanted plant material. So F2 and F3 generations are the labor extensive, and they were we are losing our time in regarding the unwanted plant material which is got analyzed throughout the process. So in that regard, the F2 and F3 generations are very crucial, because thousands of the plants are there which we have to analyze. So there are some merits to the pedigree analysis, and there are some demerits as well for the pedigree analysis. You should carefully remember all of these merits, three merits, three merits and the three demerits. You should remember carefully, because that much amount of the material you will absolutely require it in the UPSC mains examination. All right.